Hello. Hello. It's almost 2 o'clock. And we will be ready for the next session. So I will wait until a few people arrive and we will be ready to crack on with Flying Geese. So I hope you all had a lovely lunch. Hello Liz, hello Maria, ready for part 3. And hello Pauline and Marilyn. I suppose it's a much more earthly time now, isn't it? 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. What could we be doing better than a little bit of stitching? Aha. So I have, what have I done? I have downloaded the lives so that I can upload them again and they won't disappear. Hello Caroline. So this group, along with the other groups that I've done so-alongs in, will have the lives put back there before they disappear so that there's always a live within the group. Hello Jane. Jane, your easy half square triangle, easy half square triangle rulers are in the post. You may have got them today, I don't know, but sorry they've been a little bit delayed. But they're definitely on their way. Hello Nikki, you are on time. You caught up, Pippa, fantastic. That was the reason for doing this particular sew-along in this way. So it gave you a chance. Oh, good, lovely to see you, Leslie. Gave you a chance to do the extras in between time and have a little break rather than perhaps feeling a little bit, oh, crumbs, I can't keep up. But I'll see how you feel that it's worked at the end. Oh, Wendy's been baking but watching. Fantastic. Sounds good to me. I've had my lunch. I'm feeling revived and ready to do the next little bit. Now, again, you may have made Flying Geese with this method before. You may have not. If you have, it'll be a little refresher. Probably a different size because what we will be doing, as you can see, I've got a large piece of fabric, a 9.5-inch square, plus 4 dark fabrics in 5-inch squares. So we're going to be making Flying Geese which measure 8 inches by 4 inches when they're finished. Oh, you've watched the videos. Fantastic, Linda. You have been busy. So you know what stage we're up to now. So I could take those out the way. They're my little scrappy bits there. So, oh, well done, Pippa. It's your first ever attempt at any sort of quilting. Well done indeed. That's really, really good. And I've gone through, you know, all the basics so that you can get it right first time. Oh, jolly good, Pauline. Pauline thinks the times have been perfect with the gaps to sew. Might do it this way again then, you know, in the future. Because it's always nice to know if you feel it's the right thing when you have to try little different things, don't you? Just in case something's better, which you haven't tried. So, yes, we'll probably do this similar sort of thing again. Yes, so for a first time touch on quilting, patchwork and quilting, that is really, really good. And as I say, it is, I go through everything as I would make it myself. And as I quite often say, you know, pop some pins in there if you'd like to. I've been patchworking for so long, I just hold it with my fingers, but by all means use pins, binding clips, whatever you feel you would like to use that helps. But as we were doing, and the same with this one, we will be drawing diagonal lines. Which did I do them? No, I didn't do them. So I wouldn't go by eye creating a diagonal across here. I would actually, well, yes, we're going to do slightly different. I will definitely draw lines on these for a smaller square. If I were using, say, fabric like this, small, and I were drawing a diagonal line, I probably wouldn't, because I feel that I could eyeball that diagonal, and you would probably feel the same. But always go for the belt and braces method to start off with, which would be to draw your line before you stitch. Marion's watched the videos too, very good. And you're live now. Oh, that's wonderful. Hello Anne, hello Carol. Right, so there were even more people that requested to join the group in between. So whether they will, I hope they'll get here, but if they don't, and yourselves alike, you can always come back into the group. The files are in the, or the PDFs rather, in files at the top of the page. And the videos will always be here for you to go back to again and again. Okay, so as I say, we haven't got loads of people, but oh, wonderful, Susan, watching from the boat. Lovely. Right, let's make flying geese, shall we? So, as I said, we have one 9.5 inch light square. So this one is my light, and then I have got 4, and this time, because most times when I've done flying geese before, we use exactly the same fabric, 4 of the same different fabrics. But this time I'm going to use 4 completely different fabrics. So the first thing we need to do with all of them is to draw that magical diagonal line on the reverse. So if you've watched this morning's, you will have heard me say to start from the centre and then draw your line outwards in both directions. So I'm just taking my square there and I'm laying that down like that, and I want that to be nice and accurate. And rather than one heavy starting at one end and push, you quite often push the fabric out of it, sort of stretches it a little bit, so you don't get a perfect angled. It may go off and a little bit wiggly, and the more perfect it is, the better. So just start in the middle and just make the pen go backwards and forwards to give you that darker line, but because you've gone backwards and forwards. So that's on there. Not the best idea to do it on your light fabric, but I'm being careful when I get to the end there. Okay, so there we have our triangles. Sorry, not our triangles. We have our diagonal lines on our big square. So the first thing I'm going to do is it doesn't matter which corner you start with, but I'm going to place my square right side of fabric down into a corner. So make sure those outer edges line up like they have there. And on this occasion, I am most definitely putting pins in here, just to hold that in exactly the right place. So I'm going to put one on each side. I bet I didn't. Hang on, I bet I didn't. Oh, I haven't got the right squares here. Oh, for goodness sake, I needed. Now you see how I could tell? That is, there's a 5 inch. I haven't got, that's a 4.5. I've got the wrong squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I need 5 inch squares, and I've picked the wrong ones up. So bear with. I have got some more squares here. So we'll have 1, 2, 3. See if I've got a lighter blue one as well. Oh, no, we'll have. Okay, we'll have that one. No, we've got that one, haven't we? 1, 2, 3. Right, let's have one of those spotty ones. Okay, so we've done one. We need to do these 2, 3. So you'll know how to draw a diagonal line when you're very silly. And you know how I knew that they were the wrong size was because they didn't overlap in the middle. And I knew that they should overlap in the middle. Silly, silly me. The diagonal lines stop you wobbling. Yes. That is the whole point, to make it as accurate as we can. Now, because we are going to be, actually, we're not stitching on the line this time. We are stitching 1/4 of an inch to the side of the lines. So that would be really quite difficult to do by eye. So we need our lines to make life easier and more perfect. So let's see that this works. And this time we do want that diagonal line to come in line so it looks as though it's just ending in the middle. Let's see if this one works a little bit. Okay, so I've popped that in. Let me just make sure. Yes, that's better. Okay, so we have popped one square into one corner. I usually find it easier to excuse me, line up with these edges into that corner. My diagonal line is almost leading nowhere, so it's into the middle. And then I am going to pop this other one at the opposite diagonal. So I'm going to line that into that corner and make sure that that's lined up. And what you'll also find is that this diagonal line that we've drawn lines up, so it just continues with the line, the diagonal line on that other square. And as I say, we do need these to hold together beautifully so that we can get a perfect flying geese. Okay, so I have my pins in. So now I'm going to start up here and I'm going to stitch 1/4 of an inch to the left of that line. So 1.8 stitch length, which I always use in when I'm doing patchwork. And here where I'm stitching here, it does overlap, which is absolutely right. And then we will just carry on stitching down the whole way to the end. So you can perhaps just see, there's my line and there is the stitched line. So having stitched that side, I'm now going to swivel it round and I'm going to come back down the other side. Now when I take that first stitch, I'm also making sure the needle's going into fabric, because it can quite easily go into thin air and quite easily the thread will break or it will all bunch up. So let's just go all the way down here. Okay, so there we have 2 lines, one 1/4 of an inch to the side of the drawn line and the other one 1/4 of an inch as well. So I am going to take my pins out because we're going to use a rotary cutter now. You can use scissors if you would like to, but I thought I'll use the rotary cutter and pop that on there. And then I'm just going to now cut on the drawn line. So let's just line my ruler up, get my rotary cutter, and then I'm going to move that ruler along. There we are. So I've now got I've got 2 big triangles which look a little bit strange because we're going to press these back. So we've got 2 pieces. Before we do anything else, I'm just going to get the pressing mat there, and I should have plugged in my there we go. it in the iron, and it will heat up pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to press this one back, and then we're going to press that one back as well. So we've got a pretty strange looking piece of fabric, or two pieces of fabric. So what we'll do is we will set the seam, which means just ironing while it's still flat, and then we're just going to push that one back and give that a press. Similarly with this one, let's just set that seam, and we are going to press that back like so. So there is our first one. It looks a little bit like a heart shape, and we're going to do a second one like that as well. So let's take our second one here. So again, set the seam and push that back, and then similarly for here, set the seam and press it back. So the seam allowance is going underneath our triangles here. Okay, so we'll work one at a time. What we're going to do now is take another one of the squares. So another one of our 5-inch squares. We've already drawn the diagonal line, and I'm going to, there's only one corner that it could possibly go in now. So even if you forgot, you would be able to work it out. Where else would you put that? So we're putting it into that remaining corner, and I'm just getting my pins again. So we will just pin. So I pin it parallel to my drawn line, but away from those lines, because we don't want to get the pins in the way of our foot. Okay, so I've popped that one on there, then we'll get the other one here, and we'll take our, there's the right side down, the diagonal line going from the corner. You see, if we popped it the wrong way, like there, where the diagonal's going off there, this would then end up like that, which we don't want. What we want is something that in the end looks like flying geese. So let's just line those raw edges up there, take another pin and place that just there, and the other side as well. And we're going to work in the same way as we did before. And I'm going to start actually from this end. I'm going to start from the open corner, if you like, and come down to this side. And we're going to stitch on each side of the line again. So, 1/4 inch, straight down. And cut. And then we just swivel that round, and then we'll start just there and come all the way back again. So this time you're only actually, looks strange, but you're only stitching across one square. So we'll bring the other one in as well. Line that up so that the edge of your foot is against the drawn line. All the way down and swivel it round, and we'll go back again. And there we are. So again, let's take those pins out. Pins and rotary cutters do not mix, and the time that you think, oh well, I won't hit it, I'll miss a pin, it will happen, I'm afraid. And then you'll have to change your rotary blade. So all we need to do now is cut along that drawn line. So I just got my ruler out and trim that. So now I have two pieces like that. There's two. And here is my second piece. So it's actually very, very quick. If you're making lots of flying geese, I'm sure you will find this is a wonderful method to make them. So now we're back to pressing. So working in the same sort of way. Here we have our half a block done. So we're just going to set that seam, push that back and press. There we have our first flying geese block. Similarly here, okay, it's on the other side, but we can push that back and just one sweeping motion. When we're pressing, which is what we're doing here, we can go along with the direction of the seam, but then I like to push out that middle and just bring that down. We don't want to do a good old ironing backwards and forwards. We just want to press that down. So set the seam, push that back, and it's basically done. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4 flying geese blocks. Now they will be oversized, so we do need to trim them back because these need to measure. They need to measure 8.5 by 4.5 once we've trimmed them. So let's just get our mat again. And really the only way to do this is with a ruler. So a good sized ruler is, this one's 6.5 by 13 or 6.5 by 12 would be good. Very rare, or you do get 4.5 inch wide rulers actually, which would be very, very good. I haven't got one with me at the minute, but yes, a 4.5 inch wide ruler would be perfect because it's exactly the right width for what we're doing. So if we put that on there at the minute, it is just slightly over 8.5, which is great. So I'm just going to swivel it around this way to start off with, because we're looking at a particular part of, I'm just going to see if I can bring that in, just to see if you can see that a little bit better. So, yes, I think you can. Now, as you can see here, this is where this is our seam allowance, this little bit just here. So we want to have 1/4 inch of fabric beyond that point of our large light triangle. So on the ruler, there is 1/4 inch line. And so thinking about that, and then also thinking that the whole length here needs to be 8.5. So if this point is right in the middle, I really want the point that is 4.25 on my ruler. So there's the 4, there's the 5. 4.25 is that next, there's a small mark, which is an 1/8, but the next mark is the 1/4. So if you can get that line at 4.25 hitting where the point of our flying geese is, which is 1/4 inch away from the edge of the fabric, that is exactly the spot we want. So you can see, I can see that's, so I am looking at this and I can see there's a tiny bit of fabric all the way around, which is excess, which we need to trim away. But I can see that the 4.25 is pointing to the tip of the triangle. And I can also see that my 1/4 inch line here has got just a tiniest bit. It's a really good size actually. So I'm going to trim that like that. And I should have held it this way, so that I can trim this end as well. So that's it. So I've trimmed along there, and I can then trim that end as well. So I'm trimming 2 ends at a time. So now that I know, where are we? That end and this side is exactly right. I can line up my 4.5, which is how wide we want this to be. And sorry, it's this bottom end here, isn't it? 4 and, where are we? That's it, 4.5, 4.5, and 8.5. So I'm at the 4.5 there, and I'm lining that 4.5 with the long edge there. I'm lining 8.5 just here. So I'm going to trim along there and along that edge as well. Missed that little bit there. So that Flying Geese now is exactly the size I want it, which is 8.5 by 4.5. So let's do that again. We're going to do this 4 times. So 4.25, 4.25 just there. So I'm looking at my 1/4 inch line. I've got the 4.25 just there. So I'm going to hold that down because I know that's in the right place. Trim along there and along the top. And I'm going to turn this 180 degrees. So this bottom edge, I'm now looking at the 4.5 being along that edge. I'm looking at 8.5 being at the bottom, which that is there. So I'm going to hold on tight and cut and cut. So I'm doing 2 cuts at a time, a top and a bottom. So there is another one. So just in case you didn't see that, we are doing that again. It's funny, the iPad is really below, after. So I'm looking at that 4.25 near that tip there, near that point, and 4.25 there. And I'm looking at the 1/4 inch seam allowance there. There we go. Let's just line that along there. And when I've got that in position, I can cut to the left and along that top part there. So we'll just move that away and then turn that around 180 degrees. And we know this bottom line, or this long edge, is 4 and the 4.5. The bottom is on 8.5, like so. So then we can trim to the same side again, to my right and to the top. And we have another one. And then the very last one, again, the 4.25 and our 1/4 inch seam allowance is there. Now this one I can see is a little bit, that's it, but it will work. So I've got the 4.25 pointing here, as well as it's on the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So trim to the right, trim to the top, just get rid of those, and then swivel 180 degrees so that I can line up 4.5, 8.5 at the bottom, 4.5 at the sides, along this side here, and trim and trim. Okay. So what should happen when you've got these is that, firstly, they are all the same size. There we go. So let's just put them on top of each other, and that one's the same size. That one's the same size. And I'm just lining them up so they are all, there's a bit there, exactly the same size. Now at the same time, when we made our half square triangles, that should also be exactly the same size there. Can you see? Exactly the same size, half square triangle. Also, we did our 4 patch. The 4 patch should be exactly the same size, which it is. And also, let's just have a look. Oh, there's Juliet. Oh, do you? Once, yes. Jolly good, Juliet. Yes. You've not, oh, fantastic. I always feel when I'm doing something that I've done time and time again that I hope I'm not being boring. But I guess every single time I do, there's always somebody who's never seen it before. So I'm glad I do that. And even as far as my pressing, as you say, Juliet, it's a way I've found. I like to use steam. A lot of patchworkers say, no, you shouldn't use steam because it distorts your blocks. But if you use it in the correct way, and like I use my iron, when you press, it's just placing your iron down and lifting again. That really is pressing. But I do a not ironing, but a press towards an iron. So I pop it down and I just smooch it. I don't press hard. I let steam do the work. But it's when you iron, like you would a shirt, perhaps backwards and forwards, that's when the distortion is going to happen. So, and I only tell you things that I do that I don't have problems with by doing it that way over the years that I've been doing it. And Nikki's not attempted flying geese before. Well, they're not intimidating now, are they? Oh, there's Janet. Hello, Janet. I am. Thank you. They're stick on, but they've done quite well. So I've just shown you the 4 patch that's exactly the same size, and that should be exactly the same size as my half square triangle, which it is. So this way, oh, there's Karen. Oh, never mind. Oh, good, Jill. I'm glad. So the other one, which will be hard, because this is, obviously these have got a seam allowance, but this one, not at present, because there's seam allowances to take over here. But if I were to put, the Flying Geese should be the same width there. Obviously when I put, this should be, my square and a square should be the same. Let me just turn that around like that. Should be the same width. So there we are. So that is, give that a little pull, the same width. And there will be an overlap because I've got 2 that are 4.5. So that little bit of overlap is our seam allowance. But you see those 2 Flying Geese should be the same, which they are, as our 1 square and a square. And then just as 4 of these, 4 of my half square triangles, but then I've got the overlap, which is our seam allowance there. But those should all be, when we put 4 of those together, not that we're going to do that, they will all be the same size. So that is how they are all going to work together. So I know you've all been very, very good. And so this is our square in a square, which is from this morning. We did that. And you only need to make 1 of these. So 1 square in a square. For the 4 patch, you need to make 4 of those, 4 just like that. So that was at 10 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, I showed you the half square triangle, and you will need to make 20 of these. Now, if you've watched the half square triangle one, you'll realize that 1 piece of my dark fabric and 1 piece of my light together will give me, there we are, will give me 2. So one square, 1 5-inch square of the light, 1 5-inch square of the dark is going to give me 2 half square triangles, and you need 20. So you will need 10 lights and 10 darks to make your 20 half square triangles. And Flying Geese, which is what we've just done, you will need just what I've done now. You'll need 4 Flying Geese. Okay, 4 of these. So that is 1 9.5-inch square in light and 4 5-inch squares in your dark fabrics. So we've only had about half an hour to do that, which is fab. But What I'm doing now, I'm giving you a little break to go away and make your flying geese. And then at 4 o'clock, we'll be back so you can have a cup of tea and a piece of cake ready for 3 o'clock when I will show you how to put it all together. And I think you'll like it. I have got a diagram which I will upload after the next session, so after we've done, because I want it to be a surprise right up till then, but I've got a layout so that you'll know exactly where to put all of your blocks, and we'll put it all together as well. So happy stitching for the next, I should think that might take you half an hour, but enjoy. Do you need to square up the square in a square? Yes, square it up, but really your square in a square should be 8.5 inches square anyway, because the square in a square started with an 8.5, and all we did was stitch across the corner and trim a bit off, so we weren't actually reducing that in size. But measure it. If anything, it might be a little bit smaller than you want, but so I wouldn't just measure it, but don't trim anything off. We'll work around that, but it should be 8.5 inches square as it originally was anyway. Okay, hopefully see you later. So enjoy your little bit of sewing, and I will be back at 4 o'clock. Bye for now.